100 South Jefferson Street, Princeton.
Buy 9 buffets and get 1 free. Dine in or carry out at the Great Wall. Open daily 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Located in the Princeton Plaza off Highway 62, West Princeton.
Here's your weekday schedule for Capitol Cinemas, Main Street in Princeton. And we've got 3 big ones showing for you. Shazam, Dumbo, Pet Sematary. That's our 3 movies. They all show at 6:30. Shazam is in Cinema 1, 6:30. Dumbo, Cinema 2, 6:30. And Pet Sematary, Cinema 3, 6:30. And I might add, coming this following Wednesday, we're going to have an inspirational faith-based movie called Breakthrough, about a mother's unfaltering love, no matter what the circumstances or what the options. That's our lineup, and if you've forgotten all that, don't forget our 24-hour show info number, 365-7900, or just Google us and ask for Capitol Cinemas, Princeton, Kentucky.
We're back on Coffee Talk, and we have Brent Francis, our Princeton Fire Chief, in here with us again today. Good morning, Brent.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. I appreciate you coming in again for me this morning.
I appreciate the opportunity to come in.
And, we haven't talked for a while.
It's been a little while.
Did we skip March? We skipped March, didn't we?
I think we did miss March.
I don't think you were here in March. So I'm glad to have you back. Talk to us about, we were talking just a little bit about, the last time you were here, we did talk about that there was a burn ban going on.
Well, yes, there's a time restriction, and in real extreme conditions, a ban is actually put on sometimes. That's done by the county judge executive in coordination with the Kentucky Department of Forestry. But most people get confused about the time restriction and an actual burn ban.
Gotcha, okay.
And so what's automatic every year is there's a spring and a fall time restriction on open burning that is administered by the Kentucky Department of Forestry. That's their regulation. And what that regulation says is every spring from like February 1st to April 30th, or February 15th actually, to April 30th, they want everybody to wait until 6 p.m. in the afternoon to start burning, and try to be done by 6 a.m. If it's a big enough brush pile or something like that that's not going to burn up in a 12-hour period over the night, then they want you to let it die down as much as possible through the daytime and wait till 6 o'clock the next afternoon before you build it back up. They understand, like everybody does, that all brush piles aren't going to burn up that quick. But what they try to do is cut down the amount of burning in the daytime when the humidity levels usually drop after the sun comes up. The wind usually picks up during the day. And so that's why there's a time restriction, to help reduce the possibilities of a fire getting out of control and spreading into the wooded areas. Now, that regulation actually states that if you're going to be burning within 150 feet of the woods, that's what kicks the time restriction in. So if you're out in the middle of a field, especially a green wheat field or something like that, and you're further than 150 feet from the woods, then the time restriction actually doesn't apply to that type of situation. But as forested as this area is, a lot of the burning does occur within 150 feet of the woods. And sometimes if it's going to be a windy day, 150 feet really isn't far enough away. And so, but that's what the regulations say. If you're within 150 feet of the woods from February 15th to April 30th, you need to wait till 6, and that's still if the weather conditions are favorable. If there's severe weather in the forecast or high winds, even at 6 o'clock, you don't necessarily need to light a fire. Another problem that we have with people burning is natural vegetation, leaves, limbs, brush. That's the only thing that's actually legal to burn. No garbage, no synthetic products, no furniture, no mattresses, no tires especially, no roofing. Nothing is legal to burn in the way of debris or garbage except natural vegetation like leaves and limbs and brush. So a lot of times folks think that they can get rid of a little bit of their trash by throwing it on a brush pile or something, and that's not legal, and you're subject to fines and paying for the fire department to come out, and deal with your fire if you try to do that.
Yeah, I remember, and that's probably been a rule forever.
It's really never been legal to burn garbage, and unfortunately, a lot of people have done that over the years, and that has caused a lot of our wildfires. Is somebody will put garbage in a metal can, and set it on fire and go off and leave it, and it'll lift up out of the can, or the wind will blow something out of the barrel. Aerosol cans, if you put that in the trash, aerosol cans are notorious for exploding and blowing fire out of the barrel. And a lot of times, even if you're standing there watching it, if that happens, a lot of times the fire's out of control at that point. If there's any dry vegetation close to the, people have burnt their outbuildings up. They've burnt their property, valuable property up, trying to burn garbage, and it's not legal, and it's dangerous, and it adds to air pollution around, and we just got to quit trying to burn garbage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was the norm, when I was growing up, and like I said, I remember, they even built a like a cinder block, container.
Yeah, well, you can use that now for a campfire.
Yeah,
Got some firewood. You can have a fire for a campfire, roast hot dogs or something like that, set around it. But we've got to quit burning the garbage. Of course, I'm old enough to remember the open dumps. The dump sites. I can remember fires burning at the dump years ago. So we've had to change. Those laws and regulations have changed years and years ago, and so it's just not legal to burn that kind of stuff, and you can get in trouble for doing it. And also in the city, we have nuisance laws and regulations. So even if you're trying to burn legally, like leaves and limbs, especially wet leaves, if you generate a lot of smoke and become a nuisance, to your neighbors or the neighborhood, then that can result in you having to stop burning. So it's hard to burn in the city a lot because of the proximity of neighbors and things like that, especially in the spring when windows are open, or maybe people put clothes out on a clothesline to dry. You need to be sensitive to that and try to burn when the smoke is not going to be a nuisance to anyone, and keep your piles manageable. No fire is legal if it's not manageable, and that's part of the regulations, that it's small enough that you can control it. And of course, nobody ever set a fire thinking, well, I'm sure this is going to get out, but I'm going to go ahead and set it anyway. Every time it's, well, I never dreamed this would get out. I never thought this would happen. So it's a lot of times it's good common sense, and then staying within the regulations of what's legal to burn.
Maybe every time we get ready to burn, we should think, now this is going to get out of control. What do I need to do?
You're better off thinking, now this is going to get out of control. How can I stop that?
And honestly, that's kind of my thought process. Anytime I burn anything, I want to make sure I want to make sure the hose will reach it. Because if something does happen, I want to be able to get it out.
Well, there's several things like that. I do that also. I make sure that I get the garden hose out there. I fill some 5-gallon buckets full of water. I fill a 2-gallon sprayer. I've got a 4-gallon backpack sprayer. Get all those filled up, get all of them sitting out there and ready. And that way, because it can be dead calm, and if you light a fire, the wind seems to know it. Right. And it seems to manage to pick up at some point, during the process. Even though it was dead calm when you started it, it's like you can almost be guaranteed the wind will. There's a little more wind than what you realize after you get the fire going a lot of times.
Yeah, I don't get that prepared, but I do have one bucket and the hose out there.
Well, I have to make sure I control my leaf pile of fires because I'd never hear the end of it if I had to call the guys to
You're right.
come help me.
You're right. You're absolutely right. So I'm guessing that has not happened to you.
Well, it did one time. Yes, we'll change the subject though.
Oh, will we now? Okay.
Yeah, I did catch. I've got a little food plot out at the farm, and I had some corn planted in my food plot, and I was trying to burn some of the residue grass, and wound up catching my corn on. Had to have a little corn on fire. Had to have a little help get that out.
Oh no!
But
was there popcorn all over the place?
well, I told everybody I did it on purpose because they'd come on the market with what they call roasted corn in the bags. So I told them I was just making my own roasted corn. So actually, I tried to claim I did that on purpose.
Oh no! Okay. Well, Brent, we were talking a little bit about. You said you wanted to talk something about distracted driving.
Yes, had an opportunity to go to the Kentucky League of Cities Safety Conference, which is a great conference for all municipalities to attend. And one of the subjects this time was distracted driving. They had a race car driver come in that has made it kind of his mission in life to try to change driving habits for the better, and was really impressed with his presentations and stuff. And just want to remind folks that how dangerous it is to drive distracted. And, we'll respond to, in Caldwell County, we'll respond to 120, 130 car wrecks a year where people are hurt. Now, that's not counting all the accidents where people are not hurt. And unfortunately, distracted driving is something that has seemed to increase the amount of accidents that we go to. And it doesn't have to be just simply texting and driving. It can be, eating breakfast, eating lunch, and driving, trying to read the news. I mean, we've seen and heard of a little bit of everything. People trying to read the newspaper while they drive to work, put up makeup while they drive to work. And the hands-free part, and that's one of the things that he mentioned, we would like to search for a way that we can talk and communicate and do business while we're driving. And the statistics pretty much show that even hands-free, it's your mind that is distracted as much that does the most damage. And if we're all wrapped up in a conversation, and we all know that it only takes milliseconds to get in trouble. And if we're delayed in reacting, and they had a lot of the statistics and a lot of the studies that have been done, on human beings and human nature. And if we just, if we're delayed just a second or two in applying the brakes or noticing that there's a situation that we're coming up on that needs more attention than what we're giving it, that makes the difference a lot of times in avoiding an accident or the accident going ahead and occurring. And one thing I'd like to just remind everybody about is it's so commonplace for us to get in our vehicles and drive to work or drive, wherever we want to go for recreation or whatever we're doing, that we really don't think about, I think, a lot of times when we get in a vehicle. And unfortunately, there's lots of folks out there that can relate too well to this, but that may be the very last time that we ever get in a vehicle. That may be the very last time you ever see that person again on this planet. And we don't think about that when folks, when we get in that vehicle. We don't take the time to think about how dangerous it is to drive, and because it's so routine. And especially our young folks out there, I know they think they're grown, and I know they think they've got a lot of experience, but especially a new driver, they're so many more likely to have an accident because of their lack of experience behind the wheel. And then you add some distractions to that. I mean, I can remember a time when children weren't born with a cell phone attached to their hand, like they are now. And it was hard enough to survive long enough to get enough experience to be a safe driver. But the kids now are really behind the 8 ball because you can't see anybody now. It's not just the kids, but you can't see anybody that doesn't have a cell phone in their hand almost every waking minute of every day. And it's just gotten so commonplace that just want to highlight that and bring that back, maybe for parents while they still have an opportunity to talk to their children about driving and texting or being distracted any kind of way. That anything that distracts you, it doesn't matter what it is. Cell phones are probably the number one thing, but any distracted driving is slowing your ability to react to what you're encountering out there on the road. And that half a second you lose could cause you to lose your life or cause somebody else to lose their life. So just want to take that opportunity to bring that up to everybody and realize every time everybody gets in that vehicle, that may be the last time you get in that vehicle. And but if we think about that and we prepare for that and we pay attention, we don't speed, we don't drive recklessly, then there's no reason we shouldn't be able to expect to take our trip and everything be safe. But when you take two distracted drivers meeting each other, then the odds are just go way up of the potential for bad things happening. So everybody put those phones down, put them on silent, put them in the glove box. They had all kinds of recommendations for that, and or pull over. Just simply pull over in a parking lot somewhere. If you need to make a phone call, if you need to send a text message, just pull over. Maybe the best thing you ever done in your whole life for you and as well as other people that are traveling on the road.
And, we are all guilty of that. We are.
All of us are.
I mean, I frequently have breakfast on the way when I leave work from one job to the next. I'm having my breakfast on the way back to Mayfield. And I can think of 2 incidences just recently, within the last couple of weeks. I left my house. I was on my way to Wranglers, had my horse in the trailer, attached to the truck behind me. I get off one road, make the right, and get on the parkway. Well, that's not the way I need to go to Wranglers. That's the way I go to work. Both times, I was on the phone. And once I get off on that parkway, it's all the way to Benton before I can turn back around. And then I've gone way out of the way to get to where I need to go.
That's right.
But, I was talking on the phone. It was hands-free, yes. But
your mind, it's your mind.
It was, and my mind was automatically, hey, we got to turn here because you turn here every morning. That's where I turn to go to work, or to get here, to get on the parkway and get to work, and it happens so easily and so quickly.
I think all of us do that. I can't tell you the number of times I'm so wrapped up in thinking about something, not even on the phone, just thinking about something.
Yes.
And I'll turn right to go to the house when I meant to turn left to go, say, to Walmart, and get something. And it's aggravating when you're so distracted. You've so distracted yourself that you can't even go to the location that you were intending to go to.
Yeah, and I've done that too many times to count too.
Yes.
Yep.
And so when we get our mind off of what we're doing, and most of us probably can remember when we first started driving, how how much we were paying attention and trying not to make a mistake and all that kind of stuff. And now we're just, our mind's in Arkansas and we're just going at it, out there, and it leads to a lot of tragedy when people are distracted.
And a good point about the as we get more experience, we get less experienced.
That's right. We take it for granted.
We do.
And it's like in our line, we see a lot of accidents, we see a lot of injuries, and some of it is due to inexperience, but a lot of it is also due to complacency, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. Somebody that uses a chainsaw, for example, once or twice a year, they're a little more scared of it. They're paying a little more attention to it, and they're thinking about how easy they can hurt themselves really, really bad, with that chainsaw. But a person in the business, not only are they exposed to that chainsaw a whole lot more than a occasional user, which increases their odds, but they get complacent with it because they lose some of that fear or some of that respect for what that chainsaw can do to them. And so you do see the inexperienced accidents and injuries, but you also see the complacency accidents where we're just too comfortable with something that can hurt us really bad. Mm-hmm. And that vehicle can hurt us really bad.
Absolutely. And, back to your thought about, you turned the wrong way because you've got something on your mind.
Yeah.
How many times have you also been driving down the road and, you're going where you're supposed to be going, but you look up and all of a sudden you're like, well, how did I get here? I just missed 2 miles of my drive. I didn't see, I don't remember passing.
Well, or
that.
You go through a stoplight or a stop sign and you can't remember.
Yeah.
If you can't really remember if you stopped or not. Yeah. You kind of did out of habit, evidently. Mm-hmm. But that's scary when you're on the other side of a stoplight or the other side of a stop sign and you say, did I really look at that? I'm pretty sure that was green when I went through there, or I'm pretty sure I stopped at that stop sign. Mm-hmm. And so...
And Brent, that's not just an age thing. That's not because we're old.
That's right.
That's not right. From that.
It may be getting worse, but but that's anybody, I think. And I'm sure we, just out of habit glanced and saw green and just kept going. But we should also look left and right to make sure somebody else isn't doing the same thing we're doing. Just because you've got a green light does not mean you can go through that intersection and survive. Yeah. So you need to be paying enough attention to be driving defensively. So you're looking left, you're looking right. And if somebody's coming too fast and you think, I don't know for sure that they're slowing down, then you need to slow down and avoid that accident. It doesn't matter if you have a green light or not. If the other person is going to run the red light, you need to stop. And you see some people that are determined to go through. It seems like, I've got a green light, I'm going through. I don't care what happens. You can run over me and kill me if you want to, but I've got a green light and I'm going through here. Mm-hmm. Well, you stop and think about that for a second, and that person could be having a medical emergency. They could be having a diabetic emergency, a heart emergency. All
there
kinds
could be
of
legitimate
things.
Reasons that
yes,
they
and
can't stop.
You would help that person any way you could. Mm-hmm. But now we're in a little bit of road rage because they're trying to take advantage of me and get ahead of me when I've got the green light, and I'm not going to allow that to happen. So if we get the more aggressive, and that was covered a lot too, the more aggressive we are out here in our driving, it really increases the odds that one of these days it's going to catch up to us, and we're going to have an accident that was avoidable because of our aggressive driving nature.
Brent, I appreciate you talking to us this morning, and hopefully we won't miss next month. We'll get you on the schedule.
Happy to do it. I hate to come in and rain on everybody's parade all the time, but every time we can talk about something that can prevent a tragedy or prevent an accident, and hopefully everybody will just take a second, slow down a second, and remind all your family members, especially our young drivers, how dangerous it is. And I know we do. Everybody's scared to death when our kids start driving. But it just tears us to pieces to go out there and see these young folks, injured and maimed by accidents that a lot of times are preventable if we just slow down just a little.
All right. Well, I, for one, am going to wait an hour for breakfast.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Brent.
Thank you.
Brent Francis, Princeton Fire Chief.
Here's your WPKY Weather Edge Weather Center forecast.
Cloudy skies